Last night, we got a major shocking development when surveillance video was released showing Georgia vote counters pulling boxes of ballots out from under tables after they had booted everybody from the room. Now, this is already in dispute with these really weak and pathetic attempts at debunking the claim, which you can't really do because there's also sworn affidavits corroborating what we saw. My friends, we now have video surveillance evidence of what appears to be, was allegedly ballot stuffing. Around the same time, we saw, it was reported that Joe Biden gained an amount of votes equal to the amount expected to be counted in those boxes. Very, very crazy news, mind you. But this segment is not about that. I did talk about that earlier today, but there is still more major breaking news. The Pennsylvania GOP has called on Governor Tom Wolf to call a special session disputing the 2020 election results because there's widespread irregularity, many unanswered questions, but more importantly, a whistleblower has come forward, a truck driver claiming that they drove a truck full of ballots in October, raising a ton of questions about why this was done, who ordered it, and who is this whistleblower. He certainly needs to testify. This is clearly calling Pennsylvania in dispute. Now, it is unlikely the governor will actually convene the session. And a lot of the Democrats are saying it's too late. It's been certified, and December 8th is the safe harbor. You have not enough time to do anything. But wait, there's more. The Supreme Court has docketed the challenge to Act 77 brought forth by Mike Kelly, Sean Parnell, and many other Republicans. This is the suit arguing that mail-in voting in Pennsylvania is unconstitutional. It has been docketed by the Supreme Court, meaning it wasn't dismissed outright. And Justice Alito has called on the Supreme Court to give their answer on this, to make a statement on it by December 9th. Now, of course, many on the left are saying it's too late. If it happens by the 9th, then it's done. The safe harbor provision in the Constitution says by December 8th, you got to resolve your conflicts. OK, sounds like the conflict won't be resolved if the Supreme Court of the United States is waiting to give their opinion or decide whether they'll accept or dismiss this case. Sounds like Pennsylvania there's still a possibility this flips to Trump. But more importantly, the way I see all of this, you got to understand, it's not so much about this hard, rigid letter of the law issue. It's that the election is being disputed in many different ways. The reason I bring up Georgia, even though we're going to be talking for the most part about Pennsylvania, is that we now have two states, maybe more, where it doesn't even matter if it comes to December 14th and the Electoral College votes for Biden. On January 6th, when we have a joint session of Congress, anybody can raise objection. And we might get a wave of objection from federal level Republicans saying no, especially those who represent Pennsylvania, saying we dispute this. We do not believe this is correct. And these votes should not be counted. I have no idea where we go from there. But my friends, let me give you this major breaking news from CBS Pittsburgh. Now, before we get started, make sure y'all check out youtube.com/TimCastIRL. It's another one of my channels. It's different from this one. Subscribe to it. We do a Monday through Friday live podcast with a bunch of different guests from across the political spectrum. Of course, the staunch lefties tend to get a little bit more thumbs down than anybody else for a variety of reasons. Mostly it seems like personality issues, I guess. But we have conversations around political issues, topical events. So again, youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Subscribe. But don't forget, on this channel, hit the like button, subscribe, notification bell. Let's read the news from CBS Pittsburgh. Pennsylvania Republicans want Governor Tom Wolf to call a special session on the 2020 election. They say the term for the Pennsylvania legislature ended on Monday, but Pennsylvania Republicans want to go back to the Capitol before year's end. 32 Republican lawmakers are calling on Governor Tom Wolf to call a special session on the 2020 election. The group of Republicans calling for the special session are largely made up of the same lawmakers that have been disputing the results of the election. They are calling for a referendum to have Congress pick Pennsylvania's electors. However, it is unlikely that Governor Wolf will honor their request. But I believe this will potentially break the safe harbor provision If there is a dispute and the governor has not taken actions to resolve this, then y'all can't, your electors are going to get objected to. It's going to get spicy, but I got the list. Check this out from Daryl Metcalf, serving PA's 12th legislative district. Press release. Lawmakers call on Wolf to convene PA General Assembly for special session on election oversight and integrity. They go on to mention Article 4, Section 12 of the Constitution of Pennsylvania provides that the governor may on extraordinary occasions convene the General Assembly. Additionally, Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution provides that a special session may be called by the governor whenever, in his opinion, public interest requires. Now, we previously heard from about 26 members of the PA House that they intended to call this election in dispute, essentially nullifying any electoral votes from the state. If Joe Biden loses Pennsylvania and 2 other states, he does not get to 270. He does not win. Ladies and gentlemen, it's never going to end, is it? I think the only time this really we can say for sure is over is when on January 20th, Joe Biden puts his hand on that Bible and becomes the president. But maybe something else happens. I got no idea. That's the real hard deadline. To be honest, I think January 6th is where things will ultimately get spicy. People have said it's got to be done by December 8th, safe harbor. Not necessarily true. Okay, well, counting the votes on the 14th or casting their votes on the 14th, we've said that too. January 6th, when Congress counts the votes and they could object and it could go into pure chaos. But check this out. Why is it that they want to convene this special session? It is not just because they are angry Trump lost and they want him to win, though I think any reasonable human would conclude that's probably a large motivating factor. They're Republicans, they want to win the fight, and they'll find a reason to do it. But the truth is, there are many irregularities, and more importantly, a whistleblower has come forward straight up saying they were driving pallets of ballots between, I think, 2 different cities, and this needs to be investigated. But they gave us a list. I don't know if I can, this is big, it's 15 points, they say. Logs indicating when Dropbox ballots were collected and delivered, the log of persons who made these deliveries and who had access to the Dropbox keys and when the access was obtained. Okay, well, there's a following questions, they say. Let me read the previous sentence to make sure I can understand how they're framing this. They say, there are numerous unanswered questions regarding the election that require a sitting General Assembly to examine and fulfill our duty to conduct oversight. The General Assembly in session is necessary to seek answers to these questions to help restore our citizens' faith in the electoral process. Interim State Government Committee Chair Seth Grove sent a list of such questions to Secretary Bookvar. In addition to his requests, we request the following information and answers to the following questions. So that was the first one. They want the logs indicating when Dropbox ballots were collected and delivered, the log of persons who made these deliveries and who had access to the keys when it was obtained. 2, when local officials created a 2-person per key system with ballot drop boxes. 3, the logs indicating when ballots were collected and delivered from temporary satellite offices. 4, the list of all private persons deputized to collect ballots through the mobile pickup efforts. So I'm not going to read through all these. These are just the demands they have for what they want to have happened. And it's rooted in just impropriety or allegations of it. But they add, in addition, yesterday, a Pennsylvania whistleblower revealed new information. A truck driver working for a subcontractor of the United States Postal Service revealed that he transported well over 100,000 completed absentee ballots from Bethpage, New York to Harrisburg, PA. There is no logical explanation for this to happen. We call on you to exercise the authority granted to you in our Pennsylvania Constitution to call the General Assembly immediately in a session so that we can provide the election oversight the public deserves. I do not believe that the governor will actually do it. I don't. But let me read for you the Constitution. It says December 8th, the safe harbor deadline. This is from congress.gov. The U.S. Code provides that if election results are contested in any state, and if the state, prior to election day, has enacted procedures to settle controversies or contests over electors and electoral votes, and if these procedures have been applied and the results have been determined 6 days before the electors' meetings, then these results are considered to be conclusive and will apply in the counting of the electoral votes. This date, known as the safe harbor deadline, falls on December 8th in 2020, which the contest was decided, the governor of any state where there was a contest and in which the contest was decided according to established state procedures is required to send a certificate describing the form and manner by which the determination was made to the archivist as soon as practicable. You see what I see here? I'm not a lawyer and maybe I'm wrong about this. So by all means, if you are, comment below, let me know what I'm missing. But they basically say if there are controversies and you have enacted procedures to settle them and it has been determined, then they'll count your votes. There are controversies, there are contests, there are challenges, they are active, there are lawsuits, they are saying, no, you have not done anything to rectify this. So why would you get your state to actually have its votes counted? It sounds to me like they're straight up, what we're seeing right now is, nah, there's going to be a dispute, your votes won't count. It's happened before and it's happened recently. Check this out. Whistleblowers share first-hand accounts of election irregularities. I couldn't go to my grave knowing. 3 whistleblowers allege disturbing election day voting irregularities on Hannity as the Trump legal team forges ahead with lawsuits in various states. Ethan Pease, a United States Postal Service subcontractor from Wisconsin, claimed at a press conference earlier Tuesday that he was informed of plans to backdate 100,000 mail-in ballots in order to circumvent the deadline for submission. Peace made the accusation in a sworn affidavit, despite Attorney General William Barr saying earlier they found no proof of widespread fraud. No Fox News. They said to this date they haven't found fraud that would have changed the outcome of the election. I think 100,000 mail-in ballots. You could argue we don't know who those ballots were for, so we can't make a determination. But I think it's likely it would have changed the outcome in one way or the other. Quote, I had no ballots to take on election day, Peace told Sean Hannity. The day after the election, I didn't really think anything of it until the Postal Service supervisor asked me if I had forgotten ballots the night before. And I didn't have any, so I was like, that's kind of a weird question, no? Peace said he was told that 100,000 ballots were supposedly missing in the state of Wisconsin, and an order came down to look for them in the Wisconsin-Illinois USPS chapter. Peace said that while he identifies as an independent or libertarian, he felt compelled to speak out because he couldn't go to the grave he couldn't go to the grave, quote, knowing what I knew and just keeping that to myself, knowing that something went wrong in this election. Jesse Morgan, who also works as a USPS subcontractor truck driver, claimed to have driven nearly 300,000 completed mail-in ballots across state lines. Quote, I can tell you, I took 24 pallets, Morgan told Hannity. This happened on October 21st, and I picked them up in Bethpage, New York, and drove them to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And from Harrisburg, I drove them to Lancaster, dropped the trailer in Lancaster, dropped my truck off, and went home. Say what? From New York to Pennsylvania? Yo, we got a serious dispute here. How in good faith could this state be processed? I do not believe so. But I tell you, there's a good reason it won't matter. Like I said, the governor's not going to convene this session. He's going to go to the federal government and say, we've resolved all disputes. Those were not brought up in session. We have no reason to bring them up. The whistleblowers are meaningless. People can say whatever they want. No formal contest, no formal complaint. And maybe they'll say yes. But there's something else here. My friends, Supreme Court again asked to block Biden win in Pennsylvania. This is an Associated Press report posted to the Washington Post that says, fresh off another rejection in Pennsylvania's courts, Republicans on Thursday asked the U.S. Supreme Court to block President-elect Joe Biden's victory in the battleground state, while the state's lawyers say fatal flaws in the original case means justices are highly unlikely to grant it. Perhaps it doesn't matter. Alito said, check this out. Okay, let me just read this. This is heavy stuff. Seriously, you need to let people know this is happening. This could be a game changer. Republican U.S. Rep. Mike Kelly of Northwestern Pennsylvania and the other plaintiffs are asking the high court to prevent the state from certifying any contests from the November 3rd election and undo any certifications already made, such as Biden's victory, while the lawsuit is considered. They maintain that Pennsylvania's expansive vote-by-mail law is unconstitutional because it required a constitutional amendment to authorize its provisions. However, in a sign that the case is likely too late to affect the election, Justice Samuel Alito ordered the state's lawyers to respond by December 9th, a day after what is known as the safe harbor deadline. That means that Congress cannot challenge any electors named by the date in accordance with state law. That doesn't seem to be what I read from congress.gov, but maybe I'm wrong about this. He says they have to respond by December 9th. They have to respond by December 8th. That's the deadline. There is an active dispute docketed with the Supreme Court. If there's nothing done to resolve this, I don't understand how that is good for the Democrats. They need to actually respond as soon as possible to get this resolved as soon as possible. But I tell you this, in this lawsuit, a lower court judge in Pennsylvania already ruled they will likely win on the merits. So he wants the state lawyers to respond. I guess we'll see how it plays out. If they respond by the 9th, then the dispute was never resolved. No action was taken to resolve the dispute. It's docketed with the Supreme Court. How could they claim it's good to go? Maybe what they're really saying is that because they've certified Biden, nothing else matters. And you've got to decertify if we're going to get any changes. But I think that's kind of absurd. They say that after certification is when you can actually contest the election. And they're contesting the whole system right now. Ultimately, I'll tell you this. People think it is a rigid computer code style world we live in where they look at the law and go, it says we got to do it by the 8th. No. The Supreme Court is the law of the land. And they might say, due to extraordinary circumstances, we are, overriding this. It's all about people. If the Supreme Court says it, what are you going to do? They could just say, in this circumstance, there was an active contest. Our opinion is such, and so be it. And on January 6th, people can raise objections. They go on to say that Biden beat Trump by 80,000 votes, blah, blah, blah. The Supreme Court threw out the case Saturday, but on narrow, and this is from me, on narrow grounds. They said that it was too late. Kelly's lawyers sought an injunction Tuesday in the Supreme Court, then withdrew it while they asked the state's high court to halt any certification until the U.S. Supreme Court acts. The state's justices refused Thursday, and Kelly's lawyers promptly refiled the case to the U.S. Supreme Court. In the state's courts, justices cited the law's 180-day time limit on filing legal challenges to its provisions, as well as the staggering demand that an entire election be overturned retroactively. Nah, that's BS. Mike Kelly won. If they overturn the election, which is not what he's asking for, he would risk losing a race he won. You see how that works? In reality, having talked to, I reached out. A lot of the left, they try to play games. They say that I don't do journalism. No. I reached out for comment to individuals involved in this. Let me put it this way. I spoke with an individual involved in this. I had Sean Parnell, one of the plaintiffs, on my show talking about this, and I reached out for comment. They are not actively trying to overturn the results of this election. They're trying to get a ruling and stop anything from moving forward. Now, you could argue that would undermine the election. It would prevent it from being, transmitted or certified. But if the Supreme Court ruled on this on its merits, immediately giving a victory to the Republicans and offering the relief of, in the future, we will have a constitutional amendment to approve Act 77, mail-in voting, then it would be done. But they did not do that. So this is big. They keep saying, the Washington Post, the AP, whatever, that no, it's not passed. It's got to be, the safe harbor provision, all that stuff. I'm pretty sure that's not the case. I've reached out to some other individuals, asked their opinions, and I tell you this, on the right, they say it's not the case. On the left, they say it is. So I tell you what that really means is the Supreme Court will decide no matter what. Of course, the left is going to claim, no, you can't do it. We're going to win. Of course, the right's going to claim, of course we can. Of course, we'll win. All that really means is there's no definitive answer. The courts will have to decide. They say in addition to challenging the state's mail-in voting law, Kelly's lawyers question whether the state's justices violated their client's constitutional rights by throwing out the case on the basis of time limits and barring them from refiling it on the same grounds. Lawyers for Governor Tom Wolf, a Democrat, said in court filings that Kelly's lawyers never before argued that the U.S. Constitution provides a basis for their claims, making it highly unlikely the U.S. Supreme Court will grant what they are seeking. In the underlying lawsuit, Kelly and the other Republican plaintiffs had sought to either throw out the 2.5 million mail-in ballots submitted under the law or to wipe out the election results and direct the state's Republican-controlled legislature to pick Pennsylvania's presidential electors. That's not true, at least according to a direct statement made by one of the plaintiffs, saying they don't know what the relief will be. It may be that, or they might advise us on what relief could be. Like I mentioned, they've said, Sean Parnell himself, maybe what they'll say is in the future, we will have to seek a constitutional amendment. But for now, this election will stand. Okay. The media doesn't want to frame it that way. They want to make the whole thing about Donald Trump. To be fair, okay, I say this all the time, and it's because I'm a milquetoast fence sitter. You know this. It is about Trump. Now, this lawsuit is about the constitutionality of mail-in voting, but it does have a bigger picture impact on the whole Trump election. If this does get frozen, there is a contest to the election. There is a dispute. No electors are going to go anywhere. And that seems to be the case. Let me show you some comments. Lawrence Hurley, he is a Reuters reporter covering the U.S. Supreme Court, says, the GOP challenge to PA election results has now actually been filed at the Supreme Court. This happened after the PA Supreme Court rejected a similar request. The case, brought by GOP Congressman Mike Kelly and other Republicans in PA, claims that the expansion of the absentee voting in the state was unlawful, actually unconstitutional, kind of different. They are asking SCOTUS to prevent any other steps being taken to certify the results, to the extent it hasn't been already. Notably, this lawsuit challenging the expansion of absentee voting was brought after Election Day, not in the months prior. My personal opinion, I don't think it matters, because as the judge earlier noted, Mike Kelly he's hurting himself by doing this. It's not an argument. They're saying, well, they should have brought it beforehand. Maybe, or maybe they're honest when they said they didn't know, and Mike Kelly won, and now he's bringing the suit, and it's going to impact him in a way that will it'll be detrimental to him and his career. Judge recognized that. Lawrence says, ultimately, this legal effort hopes to toss out up to 2.5 million absentee ballots. We've been through that. Justice Alito has asked PA officials to file a response due December 9th. From Steve Vladek. Now, I defer to Steve. He's a University of Texas law professor. I'm not going to pretend I know better than him. He's actually putting some cold water on this by saying Pennsylvania has already certified its electors, and the timing of Alito's order means SCOTUS wouldn't even be able to act on this nonsense before the federal safe harbor deadline, which is December 8th. Pretty clever of Justice Alito, and also a clear sign that this has no chance. And that's in response to the tweet I just showed you. Liam Martin is a response. He is with, he's a morning anchor on WBZ, says, doesn't Alito's timeline create a problem for the state because it can't clear up the legal challenges before December 8th? Or am I misreading the safe harbor law? Steve Vladek says, you're misreading it. The electors have been certified, and now there's no way that certification will be disturbed before the safe harbor deadline. Liam says, thank you. Far be it from me to question an actual legal expert on this, for sure. I would defer to him for the most part, but he's calling it nonsense. I think he's clearly biased. He's probably very much not a fan of Trump, and that may be the case. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is nonsense, sure. But I have to question what he's saying. You know, the problem I have is people want results. They want Trump to win or lose. They want this to be thrown out. Maybe you can accuse me of bias. Fine. Then I'll give you my, other side take on this. And again, not a law professor, so don't weigh my opinion more so than this guy. He's certainly. So I would just ask that question then. Just because the electors were certified doesn't mean that the electors aren't being disputed still with nothing to resolve that dispute. When I read that, I said, okay, let's actually pull up what it says about the safe harbor deadline. And it says, if the election results are contested in any state, and if the state prior to election day has enacted procedures to settle controversies or contests over electors and electoral votes, if these procedures have been applied and the results have been determined 6 days before the meetings, then they're considered to be conclusive. I don't think I'm misreading this. I think this guy might be wrong. But again, I'll say it a million times. I'm not the law professor. He is. But it straight up says, if there is a controversy or contest over electors, of course the electors have been certified. And now there is a controversy and a contest over the whole election and the electors. Nothing has been done or applied to rectify this controversy. So if by December 8th they haven't resolved anything, then what? How can you count the ballots? I think Alito knows what he's doing. I think the dude is one of the supreme justices, like literally, of this country. Now, my understanding, as I've been told by some individuals involved, is that they normally would have expected the Supreme Court to say you have 2 to 3 weeks to decide. By giving them only like 4 or 5 days to issue a response, they're taking it very, very seriously. It doesn't mean the full Supreme Court will take this up. It doesn't mean they will win. But I don't see how, when I read this, it means good things for Pennsylvania. The electors have been certified, but there is a challenge to them right now There's a challenge to the whole election, and there's a challenge from the Republicans over the certification of the election. They're actually contesting, saying, decertify this, walk it back. That sounds like a contest or a controversy. So I tell you, for me, it feels kind of like the ball is moving. Trump is on track, and he's making his way towards that path of actually overturning this. Now, the media is going to tell you over and over again it's never going to happen. My opinion is that it's astronomical that Trump pulls it off. To be reasonable, but every day something happens that is still good news for Trump. I just don't know if it's enough. It's not just in Pennsylvania. I started this with Georgia. I'll end with Georgia. This story from the Epic Times. Now, of course, you can see Epic Times is not considered to be credible by NewsGuard. It doesn't matter. This is easily verifiable. Georgia polling manager tells lawmakers about box with pristine ballots. A polling manager in Fulton County, Georgia, told state lawmakers on Thursday she opened up a box of ballots to find a batch of 110 that were pristine and not folded. Most of them were pretty worn until we came up to a batch that is, in my words, pristine. It was white. It was so white. Most absentee ballots are folded because they were sent through and received back through the mail. Quote, but the thing that really jumped out at us, besides the feel of these ballots, there were no folds, was the fact that the first one that was bubbled in had almost a little eclipse of white in the bubble where you would bubble it in. What we began to notice was an overwhelming amount were exactly, not possibly, but exactly the same. So these absentee ballots had no folds in them, yet they were presented as absentee ballots. Even if they'd have wound up as a provisional ballot, it would have been exactly the same. There would have been folds in them. In the middle of the stack, Voiles and her counting partner found a single ballot that appeared to have been pulled from a printer or copier too soon because the image wasn't square on the paper. They say that Voiles previously attested under penalty of perjury that she saw 98% of the batch in question were for Joe Biden. There was a lot of evidence presented. There is a dispute in many states. If they don't resolve these disputes, which I'm telling you now, some of these are actually going before Democrats and Republicans on oversight committees and panels. The Democrats are doing nothing to resolve these disputes, so I can't see them making it past the safe harbor deadline. My head says Joe Biden's got this, but something in my gut says Donald Trump is going to pull a fast one. A lot of people want to believe it. A lot of people do believe it. My head is telling me it's impossible, but I'm telling you, in 2016, my gut knew Trump was going to win, but I was like, there's no way. That's just wrong. I had this gut feeling. I think the odds, the actual logical breakdown is Joe Biden won. You can call it the fraud. You can bring it all up, but it's not about just the election. It's about Trump versus the establishment, and Joe he's won. But there's something there, isn't there? Something feels weird, especially with all this happening. The Supreme Court just called on Pennsylvania to answer to this suit, and it's on the docket. This is crazy. The lower court judge in the Pennsylvania case said they will likely win on the merits. The Supreme Court might say, yup, electors out. And if they do, it's done. And then what? That's just one state. Joe Biden would need to lose another 17 votes. That would mean just Georgia and maybe Nevada, or Arizona and Nevada, or Michigan, or any of those other states. We're talking about Trump pulling off a major hat trick. That's why I just can't see it. I just don't believe it. But my gut says, don't count Trump out. Don't. We'll see, though. Trump did say, this is recorded, he said, we're trying really hard to get another 4 years, but if not, I'll see you in 2024. So it seems like Trump isn't even sure. We'll see how it plays out. I'll leave it there. The next segment will be tonight, live. Oh, no. Actually, check out youtube.com/TimCastIRL. We'll have segments up at 6:15 and 6:30. And then we'll be live tonight with Luke Rudkowski of We Are Change at 8 p.m. youtube.com/TimCastIRL, where we're going to go over the latest breaking news of the day. So I hope to see you there hanging out. And also don't forget, check out all of these shows, the Tim Pool Daily Show and Timcast IRL on iTunes, Spotify, etc. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.